DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. We're here at Iowa State University. Today our show is going to be about heat stress in cattle. With the backlog of cattle that couldn't go to the packing plant because of COVID, we're going to have bigger cattle out in the feed yards this summer. Something we need to be prepared for, something we need to understand, so stay tuned.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on three main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, and I'm the Department Chair of Animal Science here at Iowa State University. It's been a pleasure to come back home. I still have 4 daughters in Kansas, and I am still adjunct faculty at Kansas State, so I spend time between Manhattan and Ames, but raised in Iowa, and back here at Iowa State University, where we're building some great programs for undergraduate learning in animal agriculture. Anyway, we're going to talk about heat stress today, and heat stress is something that we battle every summer in feedlot cattle. It is something that we also can understand more. And as we talk to people around the world, and Meat and Livestock Australia has developed a new program, and one of the things we need to understand about heat stress is the heat outside plus the heat that's generated inside the body. If that is greater than what the animal can release the heat, then the body starts to accumulate heat, and that's what causes the heat stress. So the first thing we have to monitor is the thermal heat load index, okay? And so that heat load index is a little bit different than what we would call the thermal heat index or the THI. And it adjusts for 4 things, basically: ambient temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, and then the black globe temperature. So when you think about it, to develop this this index, the things that increase the heat load index, when we have increased temperature, and if we have increased humidity, and if we have increased ultraviolet rays, which is measured by that black globe temperature, when those three things go up, the heat load index goes up. However, if we catch a breeze, if the wind speed increases, as wind speed increases, heat load index goes down. That's the reason why we can have cattle feel comfortable on very hot days as long as there's a breeze. There are other days where it's maybe not as hot as what we thought it was, or an 85-degree day with no breeze can feel more miserable than a 95-degree day with a nice breeze, one of those hot breezes. Anyway, as the heat load index increases, as that number increases, those animals will accumulate heat load. So for every degree or every unit of heat load index above what the animal can stay at neutral, that animal begins to accumulate. So you can imagine that an animal is at a neutral heat load index temperature in the morning. And then as we move through the afternoon and the temperature increases and maybe the humidity increases and the wind dies down, all of a sudden that animal begins to accumulate heat load in the body. We call that accumulated heat load. As the day increases, that animal is going to accumulate and store more heat in the body. And then at night is when it dissipates. I'll come back to this and we'll talk a little bit more about how this affects the calf's body right after these messages.
No one plans to get sick or injured, but when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk, Dr. Dan Thompson. And as we left, we were talking about thermal heat load, or the heat load index. And so as heat load index goes above the thermal neutral zone of the calf, every hour that calf is above that level to where they can't get rid of heat, they are accumulating heat. So the accumulated heat load index is how much heat that calf's body is accumulating. So we've already established as humidity goes up, as ambient temperature goes up, as ultraviolet rays go up, we increase heat load index. As wind speed goes up, we decrease the heat load index. If we have a heat load index that is above the thermal neutral zone of those cattle, the body accumulates heat. That's the reason why it is so important to not only watch the daytime temperatures, but to also watch the nighttime temperatures. Because if we don't get night cooling, and if we don't get it to a point where that calf actually goes below their neutral zone and it has a point in time of cooling off, those animals will continue to accumulate heat. So let's say that we have the perfect storm for a heat stress wreck is to have a big thunderstorm come through in July, put a lot of moisture on the ground, and then we get some very clear, hot, windless days. We have a lot of humidity in the air from that moisture from the rain. We have and this is what will kill cattle. So anyway, as that happens, and we have that increased humidity, the increased temperatures, those cattle can't cool down at night. So usually what would happen in a normal day, calf would accumulate heat during the day, they dissipate their heat at night. But because of this humidity, because of this temperature, these cattle accumulate heat during the day. They don't dissipate any heat during the evening. And the next day they accumulate more heat. So now they have 2 days of heat accumulated in their body. It may be 2, 3, and then on day 4 is when we start to see calves drop off. So what is important to understand is that just because we may have 3 or 4 hot days in a row, and now we have a cool day, and we decide we're going to work cattle, it may be that because of the number of days that these cattle have been exposed to heat stress, you may need to take some time off, 2 or 3 days of cooling weather, to allow those cattle to dissipate that heat, to give off that accumulated heat load that's in their body before you work them. And one of the rules of thumb we use is when we're in times of heat stress is that we don't have more than one heat stress event during the day for the cattle. One of them might be gathering the cattle. That's a heat stress event. So bringing them up. The next one might be processing or working cattle. So that's a heat stress event. So we bring them up, we let them set, we work them the next day, let them set, and the next day we take them back to their home pen. Transportation, as soon as that heat load index goes up, there's an immediate danger point in which cattle that we're going to work or we're going to move could succumb to heat stress. And then there's also the understanding of cattle in their home pen not being able to cool off at night, accumulating heat load can have issues as well. When we come back, more about heat stress in cattle. Hey folks, Dr. Dan here. Welcome to Cattle First, as sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. And the term today, biosecurity. Biosecurity is security. It's like having a bouncer that keeps pathogens out and keeps disease out of your herd. One of the best tools you can use for biosecurity is a proper vaccination program, and work with your veterinarian on that. The second one is introduction of new animals. And when we bring new animals on the farm, making sure that if there's a disease that is important that we test for, that we have that done prior to bringing them on the premise. And if they haven't been, then we have a place to quarantine them until we can get the diagnostics back, I think is vitally important. Talking to your neighbors as cattle lean across the fence and communicate with each other, making sure that you have a community-wide biosecurity plan and vaccination plan, vitally important. Keep the disease out, be the bouncer.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
These days, no one can afford to take the risk of being without financial protection against high health care costs. Not even for a few days. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans offer short-term health care coverage to fill in those temporary gaps. Short-term health plans can provide you with medical coverage when you are between health plans, helping lower your potential financial risk. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau financial services agent near you.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here from Iowa State University, and we're talking about heat stress. One of the things you need to start gauging is how to assess cattle for heat stress. A normal calf will have, when we assign heat stress scores, the two things we're really looking at are panting, and we're looking at respiratory rate. The normal respiratory rate will be between 30 and 60, but usually around 40. So a calf with a panting score of 0 and a respiration rate of 40 is normal. The first thing cattle are going to do when they start to feel heat stress is they're going to stand up because the ground gets hot. So if you see all the cattle standing and no cattle lying, you're going to know that dirt is pretty hot and those cattle are starting to get uncomfortable and suffer from some heat stress. Okay. The next thing you'll see as a slight heat stress is they'll start increasing their respiration rate. Cattle sweat. They sweat in their armpits and their crotch. And most of the heat that they give off is like a radiator out of their body, off the skin surface. But when they reach a certain point of getting stressed, they start increasing their respiration rate because they can do evaporative cooling. Just like a dog that pants or any other animal that pants, cattle will increase that and they start having the evaporative cooling. So we'll see a slight increase in first thing we'll see is cattle stand up and they start breathing faster. The next thing we'll see is cattle are standing up, they're breathing faster, and they start to get a little bit of saliva around their muzzle. That can be an indication that they're starting to suffer a little bit more and they're starting to get hot. So after they see the muzzle, the next thing you're going to see is the calf will actually open their mouth to breathe. And when we see open mouth breathing and cattle that are open mouth breathing, they're really starting to get to that point where they're trying to dissipate heat. They're trying to move a lot of air and get a lot of evaporative cooling going. So it's something that you need to watch for. When we start to see these panting scores of 4, open mouth breathing, excessive salivation coming out of the mouth, and they will get their respiration rates up to 160 or more. So they're panting, and they have to, because if they take deep breaths, they hyperventilate. So cattle that are taking shallow breaths are trying to move a lot of air back and forth for evaporative cooling, but they don't want to take in too much air so that they don't hyperventilate. So cattle behavior 101, when you start to see heat stress, they're going to align with the sun. That decreases the amount of body surface that the sun is actually touching. So they're going to stand in line with the sun and they try to get skinny, right? The other thing they're going to do is they're going to try to seek shade. They're going to start to increase time standing. They're going to decrease the amount of feed that they eat. You're going to see crowding at the water trough. And when we see crowding at the water trough, that's another key indication of heat stress. And one of the things you can do at that point in time is to bring in excess water tanks, especially for big fat cattle, just to increase surface area and to increase the amount of water tank space. More after these messages.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer and work with you.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson. We're talking about heat stress in cattle. So what can I do to prevent heat stress? The first thing you can do is you can mow the weeds around your facility. That increases airflow. The other thing I like to do is I like to build mounds in my pens. And what that allows is cattle, when they're heat stressed, they'll go up on top of those mounds and they'll catch a breeze. Those mounds also help when you have rain, giving cattle a dry place to lay down in the winter. So knock down the weeds, put some mounds in there where cattle can get catch a breeze. We want to make sure we have adequate water tank space. If you get into a point in time where you're having cattle that are really, really desperate with heat stress, we have to worry about two things at that point in time: shade for these cattle and water. And what we will do with shade during times of heat stress is we need 20 square foot of shade per animal. And you can do things where we have just put shade up at an angle on the top of a top rail of a fence to provide some shade and relief. You can put up temporary shades. You can build permanent shades. But make sure that they're tall enough. The higher they get, the more shade they provide for the amount of cloth or the amount of fabric or whatever it is you build your shade out of on the ground. You want your shades to move during the day across the pen, because if you don't, what will happen is if you put one shade in the middle of the pen, go buy a temporary shade that's a square, and all the cattle get up underneath it, they will urinate and they will defecate there the entire day, creating more humidity, creating places of a mud bog, and those cattle you'll not only have heat stress from the humidity and those cattle underneath that shade, but you'll wind up getting foot rot, because they'll get really soft hooves standing underneath that shade, and they'll come out and then go step on the hard cracks as they go to the feed bunk. For water, we prioritize. The first thing we do is we look at the fattest cattle or the most finished cattle first, and then we work our way down. But if we see cattle gathering at the water tank, it might mean that we need to have an extra automatic water in those pens. But it also may mean just to get the big silver galvanized tanks, put them in the pen. Now don't get tanks that are too big, because the water will get hot, okay? So refilling it with cool water multiple times a day is better. The other thing, if you get in an emergency situation, you can actually roll plastic down your feed bunk, put sandbags on the end, and water the entire pen in the feed bunk as well. If by chance you have an animal that goes down with heat stress, one of the things you need to do is immediately cool that animal off with water. And some people have recommended treating them with dexamethasone. Okay? So, in a nutshell, watch the thermal heat index. Make sure that we have a thermal load, that we understand the thermal heat load, understand that cattle can accumulate heat over multiple days. We cease and desist activity when we're times of heat stress, so we give those cattle a break and we don't overheat them by moving them, especially fat cattle. And then make sure you understand how to understand when cattle have heat stress. Make sure you understand what to do to prevent it by changing some things in your facility, and make sure the cattle have plenty of water and some shade. Thanks for watching us. If you want to know more about what we do at DocTalk, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. Always work with your local veterinarian, and I'll see you down the road.
DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals. Join Ag AM in Kansas, everyone, Monday through Friday mornings on local stations throughout the state of Kansas, and every day on your favorite social media. Monday kicks off with Dr. Dan Thompson on DocTalk, as he's joined by leading veterinarians and nutritionists in food animal production. They discuss current production challenges and tips on how to deal and prepare for those challenges. Tuesdays on Farm Factor, it is our friends here at KFRM Radio with interviews from top experts in agriculture. Wednesday, it is a little of Kansas history with Deb Goodrich on Around Kansas. Thursday, Britton Rucker brings us Ag Etc. This day is filled with agricultural research and ag happenings around the Midwest, including our new Young Leaders in Ag segment. We end the week with Authentic Ag and updates from your local checkoff programs. Make sure to check your local listings or like us on Facebook and Twitter at Ag AM in Kansas, and on YouTube at Farming Unlimited TV, so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.